Welcome inside the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas. Eric Elkin alongside former UTEP quarterback great Trevor Vidito. I can sense the excitement with Trevor sitting next to me right now. We are high atop the Sun Bowl Stadium here in El Paso, but down on the field, the Miners are getting set to take on the Miners. It is the spring football game, and as you can see, a mix of white, orange, and a couple of blue jerseys in there. We'll try and take you through this spring game. There will be live tackling in this one. Obviously, this team did not get to play in a spring game last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and prior years to that, they didn't have live tackling. But this year, they have the pads on. They have two teams split up. Some players will switch and play both ways, so we'll try and take you through all of it, but also just try and introduce you to some of the new faces, the familiar faces, and some of the big storylines going into the 2021 football season for UTEP football. Trevor, just got to be excited to be back inside the football stadium, and there's some fans in the stands. There was a nice pregame ceremony we'll talk about throughout the broadcast as well. So a lot of the big names here in the city of El Paso as well.
Well, it's exciting to be back and actually have people from around town being able to join together and actually celebrate something special. And definitely here in El Paso, football at UTEP is definitely a big inspiration for a lot of the El Pasoans here. And so being able to open the new facility for these people here today and actually have a spring game where we're going to get to see a lot of the talent that we have on the team with a couple of new coaches, in the reins this year, and quite a few guys that we've added to the list of on the roster. See what they have to offer, see what these guys are going to bring to the table, and just about to get kickoff started right now.
And it'll be a kickoff from Gavin Beckley, the junior out of McKinney, Texas, the starting place kicker for UTEP. He's got it teed up at the 35-yard line and kicks it away end over end into the end zone. They will simulate a kick return here. Obviously no tackling on the special teams plays. Quarterbacks also hands off, as you would expect. They're wearing the red jerseys in this one. So no tackling of the quarterbacks, nothing live on special teams, but we'll go through the motions of the special teams. And we'll see sprinkled throughout these offensive possessions, field goals, punts, you name it. But right now, 12 minutes put on the clock. And we're kind of going to go by the seat of our pants here, too, because the format of tonight keeps changing throughout the week and all the way up till kickoff. So it's very much up to the discretion of the head coach, Dana Dimmel, down on the field as to what ultimately they decide to do throughout this game. Whether it'll be a running clock to start or at least for the first half, second half, we'll have to wait and see. But the first snap of the game is a loss of a yard on the play. The handoff to Reynaldo Flores wearing the blue jersey. And we will not see Deion Hankins, starting running back for UTEP last year, who had just under 600 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns, a long of 41, had a huge performance against Louisiana Monroe and a win on the road, 118 yards and 3 touchdowns. He is one of the several players who are not in uniform tonight. Little dinged up from the spring, nothing major, so he'll be taking this one off and giving some reps and opportunities for others. And also the starting quarterback right now is Calvin Brownholtz in this first series for the white team.
And I like what UTEP has started out with here in the first couple downs of the scrimmage, is to be able to see them line up in shotgun, a pistol-like formation, and be able to give them an option if they're going to be able to run the ball or pass it. I do like that set, which is going to be something new that we're going to see from the offense this season. And this is the third down in a row that we have 3 wide receivers lined up for Brownholtz at quarterback.
Brownholtz makes the completion over the middle. It is caught by Flores. Flores actually he's listed on the roster this year as a wide receiver, but he is playing running back due to some of the people who are out. Willie Eldridge also out at running back tonight. So no Hankins, no Eldridge. So Reynaldo Flores will get to play running back and wide receiver. The versatile back, redshirt junior out of El Paso, Texas, out of Isleta High School. And Brownholtz getting this first start despite being number 2 on the depth chart behind Gavin Hardison. Here's Brownholtz out to Flores again, and Flores has a lot of room to run across midfield before he's pushed out of bounds just shy of the orange 45-yard line.
Good patience by Brownholtz on the play. Line up, makes his read on one side of the field, didn't find anything, tries to escape out of the pocket and finds a wide open running back escaping out of the backfield to pick up a nice first down. Easy way to be able to pick up yards. When you scramble, get out of the pocket, find a wide open guy, give it to him, and let him make some yards.
The white team primarily made up of the ones, but again, several players out. Brownholtz did start a game for UTEP last year. The Miners going 3-5 in 8 games. They had a really tough schedule from late October through the month of November. They ended up not playing another home game here after September because of the COVID issues in the city of El Paso, having difficulties getting anyone to come here. Of course, El Paso was in the national spotlight when it came to COVID-19 in terms of being one of the hot spots for COVID-19. So they just could not get a game played here. But the one game that Calvin Brownholtz started was the final quote-unquote home game of the year for UTEP, but it was played against North Texas in Denton, so it was a home game
away from home.
And Brownholtz actually played really well in that game. Gavin Hardison was a late scratch. He went 10 of 26, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, did throw 4 interceptions as he gunslings one over the middle, incomplete, was looking for Josh Farr. But he also showed his prowess and ability with his legs, 114 yards on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns in what was really just a wild game against North Texas.
Well, he's definitely an athlete, and he was able to, showcase those skills in that game. And I always say to guys whenever I see them, if I'm ever on the field or having a chance to talk to any of these guys, whenever you have an opportunity, you got to seize the moment and take advantage of that opportunity because you never know when it's going to come again. But when you make big plays, people remember those things happening, and it makes a big difference on the trajectory of your career moving forward.
Gavin Hardison is the surefire starter for Dana Dimmel at quarterback going into next year, as Brownholtz will take a deep shot looking again for Farr. Incomplete, but there is a flag on the play, so they'll get interference as Josh Farr, the junior out of Carmichael, California, which is the same hometown as Calvin Brownholtz. He had 2 catches for 11 yards last year, trying to make a bigger splash this year. It'll be interesting at the receiver position, Trevor. You've obviously got Justin Garrett and Jacob Cowing. Cowing, by the way, out tonight. He's been dealing with a little bit of a hamstring issue throughout spring ball, so they don't want to mess with that. So he is out tonight. JG and Cowing are your easily your 1 and 2, but they're trying to figure out who that third guy is going to be at the wide receiver position. Josh Farr, one of those names trying to get into the mix.
Well, Josh Farr definitely throughout the spring and the few practices that I was able to attend and visually get to see what the guys are doing and how they're building, he was one of the guys that was making a name for himself and definitely one of the coach favorites out at wide receiver to be able to, you mix it up. We definitely need to have a third wide receiver, and if you have someone that can get in, especially to mix it up, whether they're lining up in a slot receiver or they can also line up on the outside, it definitely helps offensively what you're able to bring to the table.
Brownholtz that time was looking deep to Lucas Flores, a freshman out of here in El Paso, Isleta High School. So that'll bring up 2nd and 10 here after the penalty before that. It is a running clock, so we'll keep you updated with that. About 6:35 left here in this first quarter. They are starting with the running clock. We heard that maybe they'll go to a traditional clock in the second half with the 12-minute quarters, but with stoppages. Otherwise, they're only planning on stopping the clock during change of possessions here in this first half. And there's another good run from Flores, so he's getting a good run right now. Gets spelled here for a play, but it's been a nice start for Ronaldo Flores, probably the most noticeable player in the early going here for the white team.
Well, it's definitely nice to hear his name. He's been able to touch the ball a few times and pick up a few first downs, and he was able to give them a good opportunity to pick up the first down by picking up 8 on second down there and moving them up just in 3rd and short. And looks like they're lining up here again in the pistol-like formation with Brownholtz.
And now in the backfield is Jalen Joseph, a redshirt freshman, also out of El Paso, an Andrews High School product. Brownholtz has to call timeout as the play clock was winding down. And they keep the clock going even during the timeout. I was wondering if they were going to stop the clock for this. Of course, one of the big storylines this spring for UTEP, they returned just about everyone. Everyone on offense is back. Almost everyone on defense is back, and even the couple of starters they lost defensively. Dana Dimmel really likes what he's got on the defensive side of the football. They lose Duran Lowe, transfer to Liberty, but replace him with Walter Neal Jr., a senior transfer out of Kansas State who has opted out last year, chose to opt out due to COVID, and transferred here to UTEP. So he didn't play last year, but the previous 2 years, he started 18 games in the Big 12 for Kansas State, and a guy who has ties back to his Kansas State days with Dana Dimmel, and that's why he wanted to come here, wanted to find a place and an opportunity where he had a chance to play. He'll bring a lot of experience to that secondary.
Well, experience is definitely what UTEP needs, and anyone coming from a big power school like that, coming from Kansas State and having the experience of 18 games under their belt definitely is nice, especially for the younger guys here, and even the guys that are returning and may not have the amount of experience that he does. Is great to be adding to the team, especially with UTEP rebuilding and working on how they're going to come out on top this season.
Another run from Flores and tackled, swallowed up really by Kelton Moss. That defensive front last year from UTEP really showed a lot of promise. Of course, Praise Amahuli on the edge was just a beast. He had a little bit of a slow start the first couple of weeks of the season, but really took off from there. Speaking of taking off, Brownholtz will take off, and of course can't tackle him. They'll mark him down just inside the 15-yard line. But back to Amahuli, a redshirt sophomore out of Katy, Texas, a 6'3", 245-pound product out of Katy, but with a wingspan of 6'10", and last year, just listen to some of these numbers: 19 tackles, but 7 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hurries, and this was the one that really jumped off the page. He had 9 pass breakups, and that speaks to that wingspan.
Well, definitely being able to get his hands up in the passing lanes for these quarterbacks is huge, especially a lot of times when defensive line coaches are coaching their guys, if you're not able to get to the quarterback, get your hands up in the passing lane and deflect that ball, and someone with a long wingspan like that definitely has an advantage on the edge of the of the pass rush to be able to get his hands in passing lanes.
Looked like a bit of a miscommunication on that last route. Quintavious Workman went in, and Brownholtz threw to the outside instead, so it's incomplete. It'll bring up 3rd and 3. This is one of those situational plays here. You're in the red zone, 3rd and short. This is one that the coaches really look at when they look at the game film and get into the preseason camp and into the season. These are the plays you need to convert on. And they go run pass option, and the pass to the outside to the corner there is incomplete, knocked down. And that is who we just talked about a moment ago. That is Walter Neal Jr.
Well, that was a good play. I don't know that I would go with a sprint out pass with a comeback to the single receiver side. I'd like to have 2 options if I'm getting out of the pocket, especially down here inside the red zone. But offensive coordinator's got different ideas than what I do, and that's why I'm not the one calling the plays.
And the offensive coordinator is one of the changes here. Changes to both coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinator, so both coordinators will be in their first season here. Dave Warner, the offensive coordinator, brings a bevy of experience, 36 years of coaching. He spent his last 13 seasons at Michigan State as the quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator for 31 of those 36 years, and he was an assistant under Dana Dimmel at Houston during the 01 and 02 seasons, and also at Wyoming during Dana Dimmel's tenure there. He was a quarterback himself at Syracuse University, graduated back in 1982. When I talked to Dana Dimmel yesterday, that was what he really impressed upon me in terms of why he likes Dave Warner specifically as an offensive coordinator here, is he's a quarterback's guy, and he can really help out guys like Gavin Hardison and that entire quarterback room. He is a quarterback's coach through and through.
Well, it's definitely great. I think just from the experience of myself, thinking of having a coach that's coaching me in my position, it makes me feel very confident hearing it from someone that actually played the position. It's totally different than someone teaching me. Knowing football and playing the position is 2 totally different things. You know a little bit different of the inside scoop of actually being in the position. And I like the insight that he's going to be able to give to these guys to help develop them and make them into better quarterbacks than what they already are.
I do want to clarify a moment ago, I mentioned the white team with the ones. It's actually the orange team that is the one. So that's why you're seeing Hardison out there now for the ones. And this will be the first snap for UTEP's starting quarterback, Gavin Hardison, and he goes to the air for the first play. It's incomplete, overshoots one of his top 2 receivers, Justin Garrett. Another interesting thing here for this spring game, and Dana kind of joked about this the other day, it is the offense, or excuse me, it is the quarterbacks calling the offense. So if you see a lot of throws, don't be surprised. That's why. So this is not the coordinators or Dana Dimmel calling the plays. This is Gavin Hardison in the huddle getting to call his own number probably more often than not.
Well, that's pretty cool to have that opportunity to be able to call your own shots out on the field. I know it's a lot for a coach to give you the ability to make plays at the line of scrimmage and, call audibles or whatever and put your offense in a better situation to have success on that play. But for me to be able to call my own play, that is awesome. So I think they should be able to take advantage of, what they're confident with, what they feel comfortable with, running with the guys that they have in the huddle at the time to be able to call a play. And a lot of times if you're going to do that, a lot of times I think I'd pick out the person that I want the ball to go to of where I'm going to be forcing it.
It could be awesome, but it could also be humbling. You could also find out why you're not an offensive coordinator or a head coach, at least not yet at this point in your career. The last pass was ruled incomplete to Trent Thompson. This pass is complete and wrestled out of bounds is Dennis Barnes. This is a really interesting thing to keep an eye on going into the season for UTEP. Dennis Barnes is a cornerback and played only on defense for UTEP a year ago. He was really in the mix for a starting spot along with Duron Lowe and Josh Caldwell and could very well start or at least be kind of that 1A guy at cornerback this year. But Dana Dimmo was telling me this guy is so fast, a 4.3 40, that he's actually going to be in the mix and going to be playing both ways and be playing wide receiver as well. As this is a nice run from Quadres Wadley. And that's a name that UTEP fans, I'm sure, are happy to hear again, and he's been itching to get back on the field. Of course, Wadley missed all of the 2019 season due to a preseason injury that kept him out for the whole year. Then last year he thought he was ready to go, played the first couple games, but ended up only with 14 carries for 25 yards and had to shut it down because he wasn't completely back from that toe injury. So this is really his first time trying to give it a go again.
Well, Quadros Wadley is definitely one of the names that a lot of the minor fans are going to remember. From when he's on the field, he's definitely able to make things happen. As you can see, he's running through arm tackles, and he definitely doesn't go down easy. I think Quadros Wadley, with the spell of having, Deion Hankins.
Ronald Awatt.
Yeah,
they really like Willie Eldridge this year, too. We won't see him tonight, but it was a freshman out of Houston, Texas as well.
It's going to be a good circulation of running backs. We're always going to have fresh legs in the game and guys that can break tackles and break out a long run if we need it.
All right, that's the end of the first quarter, so we'll keep it here, obviously, and keep talking throughout this broadcast here to kind of reintroduce you to some of these players and introduce you to some of the new players as well. But Wadley is one of those players that almost seems like he needs that reintroduction because he's missed so much time over the last couple of years. He came in as what everyone expected to be the starting running back for the Miners until he just wasn't able to give it a go and wasn't really ready from a health standpoint. And that's what set the stage for Deion Hankins as a redshirt freshman out of here in El Paso Parkland High School to just have that monster year and a few monster games with it and really got the fan base excited. And I think especially, Trevor, you can speak this, you're now a member, you've been a member of this community for so long now, to have a product who is on the highlight reel and playing that well throughout the season, who's from El Paso and that fans can rally around here locally.
Well, it definitely brings a lot of spirit to not only the guys on the team that are from El Paso, but a lot of the fans from El Paso that they see local guys and products of their hometown being able to represent, their city and playing for UTEP. And I think it's a great experience, but I really think overall the guys that we have a growing amount of guys that are going to be able to make a name for themselves for the program. And it's really inspiring to me to be able to look at the growth of the program, the trajectory and the direction that they're going. And I think it's all positive.
And that's, obviously we don't want to diminish what happened with the pandemic a year ago and still that we're living in today and all the problems that people had to deal with. But from a football standpoint, it gave UTEP an opportunity to basically have a free year. As I mentioned a moment ago, most of these players returning this year, as Hardison will take another shot in the air, finds Trent Thompson over the middle inside the 10-yard line down to the 5. It'll be first and goal for the starters on the orange team. But it really gave UTEP a free year to kind of give guys some playing experience, get some of the younger guys in there. It doesn't count against them, so everyone who was listed as whatever the class they were listed at a year ago is what they come into next year with as well. And so it will be an opportunity here for basically your same group of guys to come back with a year of experience under their belt.
Well, having the full year to be able to practice, I say practice, play in games, and it be considered practice because it's not docking you or counting against you as far as your eligibility in college is huge. And We just scored our first touchdown of the game.
Yeah, there's the first touchdown of the spring game, and it is Quandrez Wadley. And Dana Dimmel said he's probably the most excited guy of all of the guys to put the pads on and get out here on the field, and he's the first one to find pay dirt.
Well, exciting for him to be able to find the end zone in this spring game and be able to celebrate with his teammates coming off to the sideline. But back to what I was saying before about these guys and having opportunities to be able to play last season, I think back to even the time when I was in college, if you played one down of the very first game of the season, it counted as your entire year of eligibility. Well, now everything has changed to where you could play up to 4 games and actually have experience playing in the game, and it's still not count against your eligibility. But then now for Corona to come through and give them one full season of 100% of the guys on the team being able to play and return back at the same class level that they were, that is awesome experience that many guys were able to pick up, and it's a year that they've gained that will never be taken away from them.
It is really interesting how things have evolved, because obviously now they have the rule where you can play in a few games and get some of those redshirt players some real game experience without losing that eligibility, whereas you go back to not too long ago, I'm not going to age you here, not too long ago when you were playing, you lose that year just with one snap of the football.
Away.
And, these guys are just going to get an opportunity now to get a free year of experience. And one little negative there for UTEP, as Gavin Beckley's extra point was blocked, so it is now 6-0 Orange. And instead of doing a kickoff here, they're just going to place the ball at the 25-yard line for the white offense. The second possession for the white team here, and it'll be a new quarterback leading the way, this time Isaiah Bravo. Right now he's third on the depth chart. That would be one of the battles you can watch throughout this preseason camp as well. Gavin Hardison is the go-to guy when it comes to the quarterback position, barring anything drastic that changes there. So it's really a battle for number 2, and right now it's Calvin Brownholtz. But keep in mind, Kevin Hurley is another name to keep an eye out for. Sophomore transfer out of Mississippi, went to Northeast Mississippi Community College, was a guy that they signed just a couple of months ago and got in for the spring. And he played through most of the spring but suffered kind of a freak injury stepping up into the pocket late in spring practices. And when he fell a little awkwardly on his wrist. They weren't sure exactly what it was, so they erred on the side of caution, and they casted it up, and will have a cast on for 6 weeks. So we won't get a chance to see Kevin Hurley. Dan Dimmel's a little disappointed with that because he's a guy who needs the reps, but he could be in the mix to try and battle for that backup quarterback spot.
Well, it's nice that they have the depth, on their chart to be able to say that they're having a battle for the backup quarterback position. It's a big confidence boost for the team. Finishing spring ball before they get to off-season workouts and things like that, to know exactly who the leader of the offense is going to be and who the quarterback is established on the team at the moment. You're naturally given the leader role as the quarterback of the team, and so it's nice that Gavin has been able to really secure that role. And as you guys watch him here tonight, he's a gunslinger. He's got an arm. He can definitely make every one of the throws that you need to make in any point of the game, and he's just very comfortable. He's very relaxed. He keeps his body compact, and you can see he sits back there with a lot of confidence, finds an open guy, and whizzes it out there to him. So I think the guys falling up underneath him are going to be able to learn a lot from him and a lot also from Coach Warner.
So if you're just joining us and watching now and wondering what the Miners will really look like on the football field come the fall, keep an eye on the Orange defense right now. Those are primarily the defensive starters, almost all of whom were starters a year ago with this UTEP team. Very little change on the defensive side of the football. The white team primarily made up of the 2s and 3s and a little bit deeper into the depth chart. So you're seeing the first team offense go against the second team, and in this case actually the third string quarterback, Isaiah Bravo, who is a senior 6'3", 195-pounder out of West Covina, California. He only appeared in one game last year, was 0 for 2, so did not complete a pass, but also spent 2 years at Cerritos College before he came here to UTEP, and he is tripped up there around the 40-yard line. Of course, the quarterback's wearing the red uniforms, not able to be tackled, but otherwise it is live tackling in this game. That's something that I know Dana Dimmel was a little bit nervous and anxious about coming into this one. He wanted to put it on a show for the fans here at the Sun Bowl, which, by the way, good smattering of fans here for a spring game. They've condensed all the fans pretty much between the 15, the 20-yard line on each side of the field, and I think they've had a really nice turnout here.
It's actually a surprising turnout. I don't know that I was expecting to have this many people here to be able to, watch these guys for the game. But also, I wasn't sure coming in if it was going to be more of a glorified practice or if we were going to actually have a game. And so it's nice that we're going to actually get to see these guys play against each other and compete, and hopefully we can make it out without having any major injuries or anything that we're going to have to deal with moving into the off season, especially going against ourselves.
Yeah, that is the number one goal for Dana Dimmel in this one, is to avoid any injuries in this one. And I mentioned earlier there are several guys who are out with injury, but they are not said to be anything serious. Dana Dimmel does not have anyone right now that he is concerned would not be available for the start of fall practices, as Trevor Vidito is getting a nice little shout out now.
I don't even know where the camera's
both on CUSA TV, but also in-house here at the Sun Bowl as well. I'm surprised there's not a standing ovation right now and a roar from the crowd to see the legend Trevor Vidito in the stands here. I mean, this is arguably one of the best quarterbacks ever to play at UTEP.
I think the thing is these fans were missing the excitement from last year's games. UTEP was 2-0 at home last year.
That's right.
Not considering their North Texas game, which is a home away from home game, which didn't necessarily count, but 2-0 at home, it's nice. I think of myself, these guys are probably excited to be playing a game back in their home stadium with fans being able to watch them at home.
It really is crazy to think how long it's been since they've been in here playing in front of fans and in their home stadium. Now they're going to put the first-team offense back out there. So it is Gavin Hardison back in the shotgun, and he hands off to Wadley. No, actually, he keeps it on that one. He faked me out, and they'll mark him down just shy of midfield. Good play fake there from Gavin Hardison. And we mentioned the bulldozer mentality of Calvin Brownholtz that we saw in that North Texas game, but Hardison can tuck it and go if he's got some space as well.
He can definitely do that. He has the ability to get outside the pocket and make things happen with his legs, and they're going to have opportunities this year with having a lot of the zone read abilities right here, like we just saw in the last play. If the defensive end is going to crash down and take the running back, pull it out of his belly, keep it for yourself around the end, and that was a great read by Gavin on the play to pick up a nice chunk of yardage there for the first down.
Hardison has some time in the pocket this time. Will step up again and be brought down right around midfield. It looked like there might have been a hold there, but no flag on the field. So it'll be a minimal gain for Gavin Hardison, and that'll bring up second down and about 5 from midfield. They did put 3 points on the board, by the way, for the white team, if you're keeping score at home. So it is 6-3 in favor of Orange. Although with I guess the charitable way that they they give points out in this one, it's going to be tough to track because they did not kick a field goal.
I guess if they get to a certain point on the field, it's going to count for them.
Get over midfield, they get a little bonus there. 10 minutes on the clock here in the second quarter. Hardison with some time again will take a deep shot looking for Garrett, just out of the reach of Justin Garrett, and it falls incomplete.
Although that pass was incomplete, a lot of the fans and everyone here was able to see that Hardison can really rip that ball when he's ready to get it out of his hands. Late release there by the receiver to get deep, but he was able to put that thing on a line, get it out to where only the receiver had an opportunity to catch it. And that's one big thing as a quarterback. If you're throwing a deep ball, give your guy an opportunity to catch it. Don't throw it anywhere where the defender is able to take it easy.
And I beg your pardon, it was Tyron Smith just out of his reach. Sophomore, 5'11", 180 pounds, out of Cibolo, Texas, a transfer from Cisco College. He is someone that Dana Dimmel was really excited about. And I asked him, who are some of the names that minor fans may not know much about or haven't seen on the field up to this point, who we'll see tonight and into next season, who could really surprise people, catch their eye? Tyron Smith was one of the names that Dana Dimmel mentioned, and he's running with the ones right now. He is definitely in that mix. I mentioned Dennis Barnes a little bit earlier, how he's in the mix for that third wide receiver spot. He is in the mix, Tyron Smith, to try and get into that rotation, along with Walter Don Jr., of course, who's played a ton. He took the spring off, though, to focus on academics, so he's not playing in the spring game tonight. And with Cowing and Don out tonight, that really opens the door for this receiving group outside of Justin Garrett to try and show something on film heading into the offseason.
Well, experience is everything that younger guys need. You know, freshmen and sophomore guys that haven't been able to really showcase their skills. This is the dressing for everything that they've done in this offseason. Yeah, you know, for spring ball, show what you've learned and go out and execute. You know, coaches are really going to get their last impression of you from spring into the offseason tonight. And so any guy that has an opportunity needs to make a big play. And looks like
Here's
Quadres Wadley
breaking more tackles and tripped up just inside the 10-yard line. He looks like he's ready for the season to start tonight.
Well, he's ready to go, and this guy is one that he's a tank when he gets going, and he's not easy to get to bring down to the ground. And so his legs are going to keep driving, and it's going to be tough for these guys to bring him down. And inside the 10-yard line, I can only imagine they're going to give him another opportunity.
And I asked Dana Dimmel how he plans to use both of them between Quadres Wadley and Deion Hankins, because those are your two clear-cut starting guys if both are healthy. We'll see what happens here on this first and goal play from the 9-yard line. It is right back to Wadley. There is a flag on the play as Wadley cuts inside, wrestled down inside the 5-yard line. We'll see what the flag is on the outside, just around the 9-yard line near the sideline. But I asked him, how are you planning on using both those guys? Because they could easily both start, of course. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the beginning of the season last year. We saw Wadley out there. They were trading series in the initial stages of the season. But then, of course, Wadley ended up going down with the injury and not returning. And he said it's really going to dictate situational, they're different styles, so it kind of depends on what the situation of the game is. It's not necessarily going to be a ride-a-hot hand guy. It's what you need in that moment.
Well, I think having the ability to have multiple guys at the same position that fits the scheme of what's working for you, maybe in different situations during the game, you can go into a game thinking, okay, well, we're going to use this package of plays really for this running back, or this package of plays while this running back's in the game. Being able to shift them in and out gives you the ability to keep the defense on their heels, not necessarily knowing, okay, this guy's in for this or this guy's in for that. Kind of keeps them guessing.
Wadley was taken down just inside the 1-yard line, so they mark it down just a few inches shy of the goal line. That'll bring up 2nd and goal from inside the 1, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it go right. Well, he had to come out after that one, so I'm sure Wadley's a little bit disappointed that he's not going to get a chance to cash this one in. It is Flores in the backfield instead, along with Hardison. Can hear it is a little breezy inside the Sun Bowl, especially this time of year. Spring winds are a commonality in El Paso. Speaking of El Paso, here's El Paso native Reynaldo Flores into the end zone for the 2nd touchdown, this time for the Orange team to put them up 12-3 over White.
Well, that's a very positive sight to see that the number 1 offense going against the number 2 defense for the 2 possessions that they've had, the ability to walk their way down the field, using both run and pass efficiently enough to get down the field, get some points on the board. Definitely a big confidence boost.
And anyone wearing the blue jersey is playing both ways. There will be some other guys eventually that switch jerseys from orange to white, white to orange. But if they're wearing blue, as you see the running backs are, that means that they could line up for either team. Just depends on the scenario. We'll see if Gavin Beckley can convert on this extra point. His first one was blocked. Good hold and good kick this time into the wind. And the Miners have themselves an extra point from Gavin Beckley, who last year was 5 of 9 from the field goal kicking duties with a long of 47, a junior out of McKinney, Texas, so another surefire starter returning for the UTEP Miners.
I love the idea of having a lot of experience coming back for the new season. The gel of a team when you have a lot of the same guys sticking around, because when you're in school, high school, college, doesn't matter, you always have a section of your team that's going to be leaving at the end of the season. So being able to have guys that are able to stick around because of the coronavirus pandemic is just a great opportunity to be able to build off of relationships. Relationships are huge when it comes to believing in the guy that you're working next to, right? Offensively, the offensive line, they're always worried about how good the guy next to them is, because they're only as good as their weakest link on the unit. So having a senior class that was able to play with you during the year and stick around for another senior class is pretty cool.
You hit the nail on the head with my next point, and I was going to bring this up specifically for you too, because I'm sure as a former quarterback you can appreciate continuity and familiarity with the offensive line. And that was an area really of concern and weakness in past years for UTEP, and just ravaged by injuries. A couple of years ago, they barely had enough bodies as that pass almost picked off. It is knocked down incomplete, but almost picked off on that one by Josh Caldwell. That was an area, by the way, for the UTEP defense that they really struggled a year ago. Only 2 interceptions on the year, both coming from Duran Lowe, who, of course, is no longer with this team. So that's an area that the UTEP defense hopes to improve upon, is turning the football over through the air defensively. But back to the point on the offensive line, Trevor, this is a unit that now not only do they return their starters, but Dana Dimmel really feels like he's got 10, 12 guys in the rotation where you almost have a 2-deep that could be interchangeable as starters at any of the positions.
Well, I know as a head coach, an offensive coordinator, and a quarterback, if you have a solid offensive line, gives you a lot more confidence offensively that you're going to be able to get things done that you want to do, right? The offensive line able to control the trenches really is going to give Hardison time to be able to sit back, make his reads, find the open receiver, and be able to throw the ball down the field. If you have a quarterback that can make all the plays and can make all the throws but has no time to make a read, it really offsets itself. And so being able to have guys that have been able to come back, and then if someone does go down, to be able to have someone with experience to be able to step up into that spot and not lose a lot of the continuity between the guys is definitely a positive feeling.
The first team defense was able to force the punt, so they'll place the ball at the 40-yard line now for the first team offense. The orange team now going back into the wind. But yeah, you got the returning guys like Darta Lee, Bobby DeHaro, Andrew Meyer, Elijah Klein, Zuri Henry. Meyer and Klein, by the way, roommates. They were interviewed after one of the spring practices a couple of weeks ago, and those guys were just talking about how confident and comfortable this group is with one another. Of course, Meyer and Klein being roommates, they're basically best friends here, but really that whole group is so cohesive and together. And another guy that Dana Dimmel brought up is a name that Miner fans may remember, Trace Barbosa. He was someone who had a ton of Power 5 offers when he signed with UTEP, but he's just been plagued by injuries, and this finally felt like the spring where Dana Dimmel says he started to see the potential in Barbosa, which they knew was there. It was just a matter of injuries, and so he's even a guy who wasn't on the 2-deep last year who could be working his way into the mix on the offensive line for UTEP this year as well.
Well, it's nice when you have guys that are developing in your program to be able to benefit you guys overall as a team. And you never want guys that are going to just be working hard, but never improving or getting better. You feel like you're kind of stagnant. It's nice to hear that the coach and everyone else is recognizing the hard work that's being put in is getting recognized, and your abilities are going to be able to help out the team.
There's the first catch from Tyron Smith. He had one just out of his reach a little bit earlier on the previous drive. So there's the first completion and reception there for Tyron Smith, the sophomore out of Cibolo, Texas. Another one of those guys in the mix at wide receiver, along with Dennis Barnes, who's going to play both ways. So you think back to guys like Deion Sanders, who would play both ways. You don't see that very often. Obviously, in high school, it happens all the time. But at the Division I level in college football, you don't see guys playing both ways very often. Hardison able to get that pass off in a real game, probably not. Would have been a sack, but is able to get it off to Trent Thompson, enough for a first down, and moves the chains. And there is 4:55 and counting left in this first half, so a bit of almost a 4-minute drill here.
I do like watching Hardison during these drives, his patience in the pocket, even though the defensive line isn't totally crashing down on him because they know they can't touch him. He's taking his time, he's making his reads, and he's giving his receivers an opportunity to catch the ball each and every time he's making a throw.
It's back out to Smith. Tries to break one tackle and does. Cuts it back inside across the 20-yard line into the red zone. You saw a nice catch from Tyron Smith, ability to break a tackle, and then a nice little plant of the foot into the ground to gain a few extra yards instead of taking the easy way out and stepping out of bounds. That is a nice play from Tyron Smith.
Really good play. The nice thing about being quarterback is that you make the read, make the throw to who the open receiver is, and then you just hope that they are able to make the catch, make a defender miss, and make a bigger play. A lot of times, as quarterback, I think about throwing a screen pass, right? Right there behind line of scrimmage, they make a couple guys miss and pick up a big play. Yeah, it pads the stats, but it really helps the offense. So anytime that you're efficient, getting it to a guy in space and him able to make a defender miss and pick up extra yards is a big play offensively.
Quadrez Wadley couldn't handle that one, and that was dangerously close to being a lateral, which then could have potentially been scoop and score for the white team, but they ruled it incomplete right away, so no harm, no foul there. Brings up 2nd and 10.
Well, 3 for 3 for the first team offense and working their way down the field and getting into the red zone. 2 for 2 so far in the red zone and scoring a touchdown. Be nice to see if they can go 3 for 3.
And they still have 3 minutes and 50 seconds left in this first half to work with. Taking the deep shot to the end zone now, and it's incomplete. He overshot Dennis Barnes a little bit, so Hardison's throw just out of the reach of Barnes. Barnes has the speed, had some separation, but that one may be a miss from Gavin Hardison.
Yeah, a little deep on the throw lane, a little bit outside. I don't know if the swirling wind down on the field may have had any effect on that throw, but anyone that's watching is definitely able to see that Hardison has the arm to make all the throws.
Oh, yeah. And we saw that last year, too. Hardison, by the way, a little over 1,400 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Probably a number he'd like to see go up as well. The completion percentage was at 54%. He started every game except the last game against North Texas. But Trevor, the mindset for Gavin Hardison has to be so different right now compared to where he was a year ago. He was named the starting quarterback only after TJ Goodwin opted out and ultimately ended up transferring a year ago. So he was in a quarterback battle when the fall camp started and ultimately earned the spot during the preseason, but now with I can't quite say a full year of starting under his belt because of the year that it was, although that pass was almost picked off. That is not going to be one that Gavin Hardison likes on film, so maybe that counters my point here, but it's got to be a completely different mindset for Gavin Hardison this year.
Well, confidence is huge. The more experience that you have in being in games, not in practice, really builds your confidence, really builds who you are as a player. Being able to, in real time, make those decisions, make the throws, and make adjustments at the line of scrimmage if you need to. And luckily, these guys were able to get that experience. You know, Hardison being able to get in the games, throw the ball around, have some success, have some failures, things to learn about in the offseason. You know, experience that he's able to look back on and watch the film, what I did good, what I didn't do so well, how I can improve. And I see that he's growing so much just since last season.
Good sign there for the Miners special teams. The drive stalled out there. That was 4th and 10. And Gavin Beckley, the starting place kicker, knocks through a 41-yard field goal from the left hash and into what has been a bit of a swirling wind, although as the flags are flying during that kick, it was into the wind, so showing some good leg strength on that one. Nice kick from Gavin Beckley, who's also sporting quite the haircut. That looks like he's got the pandemic haircut. I don't know if he's gotten one in quite some time.
Maybe he's been able to hide from everybody.
Beckley, as I mentioned earlier, though, 5 of 9 from a field goal standpoint a year ago with that long of 47 out of McKinney, Texas. He is a junior, so a couple more years of eligibility. But you've got some experience at that position as well. He was 8 of 8 on field goals inside 40 yards back in 2019 and was 13 of 16. So last year a bit of a disappointment for Gavin Beckley, 13 of 16 from field goals back in 2019. So he's hoping to have a bit of a bounce back year as well. That makes it 16-13 in favor of the Orange team, and now back to the reserve Whites, and Isaiah Bravo getting his second series as quarterback and throws one away, I should say. He was kind of running around like a chicken with his head cut off on that one.
Well, it was a good decision. I wasn't sure what he was going to do when he was cutting back in like that, but to be able to get rid of it and save yourself for a 2nd and long is nice and way better than taking a sack or taking a dumb loss of yards on the play.
Talk about this starting defense that is out on the field right now with 3:24 left in this first half. Again, the Oranges are the ones, so primarily the starters that we presume you'll see as starters, barring injury and whatnot, come the fall. As Bravo gets to the outside, isn't marked down and still running, will be marked down just past the 40-yard line. Josh Ortega pleading his case, saying, well, I had him.
He's like, I got a 2-hand touch. That's all I can do. Give him 2-hand touch, and they still let him go. Come on, coach.
I don't know. That was pretty close. They got the fingertips, but Ortega said, you got to give me the benefit of the doubt there. That's a sack.
Hey, Ortega, you can't sack your own guy. You got to let him go sometimes.
Ortega was a starter, by the way, so we'll talk about the defense. Was a starter at the beginning of last year, but had to deal with a little bit of injury problems as well. So They ended up going with Jadrian Taylor on that other defensive end spot on the opposite side of Praise Amahuli. But that defensive front, Jadrian Taylor, Kelton Moss, Keenan Stewart, couple of transfers, and Praise Amahuli really made their presence felt a year ago. And then that secondary with Josh Caldwell, Justin Prince, and we mentioned a little bit earlier, Walter Neal Jr. Will be likely battling for the other starting spot at cornerback out of Kansas State. But Tyreek James is another name at the safety spot that they're really excited about. We also have to mention, of course, new defensive coordinator this year, Bradley Dale Pivoto. In his first year coming from Texas A&M. He was a linebackers coach there, but another guy much like Dave Warner with 30-plus years of coaching experience, and his last 7 were all in the SEC, as that pass is incomplete. A little too far for Reynaldo Flores, although there is a flag on the play, and it looks like they'll get pass interference on the call. But Pivoto is really known for his recruiting prowess, was named a top recruiter just a few years ago and spent 13 seasons in the SEC, was also co-defensive coordinator on Dana Dimmel's staff at Houston. So Dana Dimmel this year brings in 2 new coordinators, both with 30-plus years of experience, both who coached under him back in the Houston years. So you have to go, close to 20-some years ago, but there's familiarity there, there's experience there, and specifically with Pivoto, they're really hoping that his recruiting prowess will help bring guys to El Paso.
Well, I think recruiting is a huge thing when it comes to UTEP and being able to bring the athletes out here to really build this program. I think that the foundation of what they're set with right now, and Coach Dimmel at the helm, bringing guys in that, one, he's comfortable with, not only from a short relationship, but from 20-plus years ago and having experience from then up until now, the different places that these guys have been, the experiences that they've come across, and 30-plus years of coaching experience on offensive and defensive side of the ball as the offensive defensive coordinators is huge when you're really building a program the way that Dana Dimmel is right now.
It will look a little different schematically for the defense this year. The offense still very much runs similarly. Dana Dimmel will be calling the plays, although Dave Warner will be a good set of eyes for Dimmel and could chime in and help do some play calling in the season next year. But in terms of the defensive side, the schematics will look a little bit different. They've had a lot of changes over the last few years, really changing up what they look like defensively. But you're seeing more of a 4-2 this year, and then an extra guy in the secondary, as Bravo's pass is caught and taken down right away by Caldwell. On the play there is Quintavious Workman. So Caldwell able to make the potential touchdown-saving tackle. But it's a spring game. You don't want to show too much on either side. So it'll be hard to tell exactly what this defense will look like until we get into the fall and see what Pivoto really wants this defense to look like.
Well, I do know that the defensive line as of right now is the strength of the defense. And the nice thing about having a nice defensive line is that you're going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback without having to run any blitzes and save people for coverage in the back end. And you're talking about a 4-2 defense and having an extra nickel type guy in the slot that can give you support in the run and also be able to give you support in the pass and be able to cover guys downfield. So it does give you a little bit of leeway of what you can do defensively with having that extra guy there.
That was a nice pass breakup on the last play by Mikel Broussard, redshirt freshman out of Sherman Oaks, California. He was a guy who was in the mix. He was second and the 2 deep behind Davion Inyang, who does return. Remember, of course, that North Texas game was such a strange game because you had several guys in the secondary enter the transfer portal. Duran Lowe ends up leaving, but guys like Davion Inyang end up staying and coming back. So they keep Inyang, who's a guy who had 32 tackles a year ago, forced a fumble against Stephen F. Austin. That was just such a big play in that game that Justin Prince was able to recover and return deep into Stephen F. Austin territory late in that first half when you and I were thinking that game had a bad feeling and a bad taste in your mouth if you're a UTEP fan watching that game. It's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. And that was the play that really turned it
around.
And I wonder, because of the way that turned that game around and how they started the season 3-1 and narrowly lost that game against Louisiana Tech, as Bravo's pass was intended for Josh Farr, who had a step open in the end zone. Bravo wants a flag, didn't get it. But I almost wonder if that one play alone is what really propelled them to that 3-1 start.
Well, it really changed a lot of things. You know, a lot of times when you talk about games, there could be just a handful of plays in the game that really decides the game, whether it be turnovers or one big play on offense or one big play on defense that really changes the momentum and the energy and the vibe that the team has, you know, and it really can, like you say, catapult you in the right direction. And so that was a huge play in that game that really got them off to a hot start.
Yeah, because Stephen F. Austin could have had a lead at halftime. They certainly had a lot of momentum. I remember seeing their sideline. They felt it, and they were coming in as an FCS team trying to upset an FBS team, but we knew they weren't going to be a slouch in that game, and they certainly came and played like it, like they were coming here to win a football game. And it was just one of those situations where they tried to put the pedal to the metal late in the first half instead of playing a little more conservative and taking your lead into the half.
And it ended up burning them in the long
big
run.
Time,
yep.
Yeah.
It definitely burned them, and I think for UTEP that was huge. If you can string a couple wins together, especially for a program that has been struggling and unable to get multiple wins in a season, when you start off 3-1, that's a big difference changer as far as the belief in your team and your ability to get wins and overcome the oohs and ahs about having rough seasons leading up to where they're at now.
This is 3rd and goal, and the pass incomplete off the hands of Michael Young. Had he caught that, he may have had enough room to potentially get into the end zone, but it falls incomplete, brings up 4th down. It'll bring on the kicking unit, and we'll get the backup place kicker, Mark Ramos, a product here of El Paso, redshirt freshman out of Andrews High School, who will get a chance to kick in a game setting here tonight with the Orange team leading 16-3. So the first team defense does its part in holding, bending but not breaking, and there are only 11 seconds left, by the way, in this first half. So that was not only a red zone stop, but a red zone stop in the final 2 minutes of the half.
And that's huge, especially if we're looking at a real game setting, to be able to only give up 3 points, you know, given the fact, let's say that he makes the field goal, saves you 4 points from the other team. So it's huge if a defense is able to bend but not break, like you said, and be able to bow up when it really counts and be able to stop the other team from getting in the end zone.
This one will be from the left hash, 28-yard field goal, I should say. And the kick is good. So Mark Ramos knocks it through to give the white team 6 points on the night now, 16-6 in favor of Orange with 7 seconds left. We'll see what they do here. They're not running kickoffs live.
They're letting the clock run
they
down.
might just let the clock run down. So that'll be halftime, and we'll see what they end up doing. They may be doing some special teams here at halftime, some punt return setups here. So we'll see what they end up doing. Dana Dimmel out just over the CUSA logo there was just barking something out to the referees to let them know what they're going to do. So we'll just kind of follow along here and see what happens. But Trevor, first impressions of what we saw out of that first half of play.
Well, what I do like to see is the fact that the starting offense and starting defense have both had success. I think I would have a little bit of concern if we line up and we're going ones versus twos and the twos are being able to outplay the ones. However, that would be a good problem to have, that you have guys that are in the second slot of the depth chart that are able to fill in and be able to still compete. So I like what I've seen so far. Offensively, the guys look confident. Offensive line looks good. The quarterbacks are making their reads and getting the ball out of their hands, and receivers are making plays. And defensively, the defensive line is stepping up, and everyone is really kind of in the right place. I don't think that we've seen any broken plays from either side of the ball, offense or defense. There was one fumble that was recovered by the offense, but aside from that, everything has been pretty well handled, and excited to see what we're working for.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because this is the same format that they did at Kansas State when Dana Dimmel was there as a coordinator, where they would run spring games like this where they'd have the ones against the twos. And he said typically the ones would run up the score up to that first half, and then you'd kind of let everyone else play, and it would kind of even itself out a little bit. But he said he actually didn't expect that tonight because of what you just mentioned. He felt so good about his twos and the depth that this team has coming into next year, and that probably speaks to the fact that so many guys are returning, that there's just not enough room for so many starters. with so many guys with so much experience, and you don't have the turnover in the roster like you do on a normal year. So it's actually not surprising, based on what Dana Dimel was saying, that this isn't a quote-unquote blowout in favor of the ones.
Well, it's nice that you still have competition, because if you ever, especially when you're playing against yourselves, and one team gets up by a whole lot, it doesn't make it that much fun to continue playing against each other. Yeah, you want to compete, but you also know you're going against your brother, the guy that you train with day in and day out, and guys that you're really working towards being successful together. Spring ball is about earning your position, proving to not only yourself but your teammates and your coaches your ability and what you're going to bring to this team, and what part of the team that you're going to be the biggest asset.
So they are taking a little bit of a break here at halftime. If you're just joining us, this is the UTEP spring game inside the Sun Bowl with a good crowd on hand here. Haven't given any official number or anything. The tickets here were free, so they weren't charging anyone to come in. All you had to do was go online and reserve your tickets and your spots. Of course, still implementing some social distancing. Masks are required for people who come in. They do have the concessions available, but otherwise, people able to come, enjoy, take in a Friday night game. I think for a lot of these players, it probably reminds them a little bit of playing in high school.
Friday night
lights. Under the Friday night lights.
Definitely big in Texas. Texas high school football is huge, very prominent sport that many people know about in the big state of Texas. So it's funny that you say that, to think about these guys. Some of them just, a year and 2 years removed from high school, so it does kind of bring some memories back to these guys being able to play under the lights on a Friday.
Speaking of high school football in the state of Texas, the defensive coordinator, Bradley Dale Pivoto, who we talked about a little bit earlier, is the son of a legendary Texas high school football coach, which is where I think some of that recruiting prowess comes from. When you know the state of Texas and high school football in Texas, you tend to do well when it comes to recruiting, and so that's something that they're really excited about, having Pivoto here in this on this coaching staff, that he'll bring that recruiting prowess, and that comes from someone who knows the state of Texas really well. And by the way, was on the staff of LSU. He's coached in 10 bowl games, but was on the staff at LSU in 2007 when they won a national championship. So talk about a guy who brings in experience from not only the SEC, but he's got a national championship ring to prove, to show the guys. You bring it in on the recruiting trips, you show what it's like. Of course, it's not here at UTEP, but there's a guy who's been there and knows what it's like to be there.
Well, the experience alone and the hardware to be able to show is huge. Not everyone can say that they've won, championships or anything at all. There's plenty of teams that can go defeated for an entire season. So to beat a program, a prestigious program like LSU, win a national championship, those things are big. That's what guys in college are playing for, is national championships. It's hard for me to believe that there's any athlete that plays that's not trying to win a championship, and they're just going through the motions. So I think it's really exciting that there's coaches on the staff now that have so many years of experience. I think that it's huge for UTEP to have a very prominent recruiter, especially that knows the state of Texas and recruiting, because you can find so many kids in the state of Texas maybe that aren't getting recruited by all the big Power 5 schools and things like that, but have just as much talent as those guys that are going to go to smaller universities. I say small universities, but smaller universities like UTEP, and be able to ball out and show their abilities and have a great college experience and an opportunity to prolong their career even into the pros.
Still a little over 4 minutes left on the clock, so we'll see if they do a full halftime here. We're going by the seat of our pants here, too, as we figure out exactly what the format will be in the second half. They had some running clock there. They had some stoppages, so it was a little bit of a mix of everything in that first half alone. But I think the fans here enjoying it. Trevor, you and I were on hand here before the game started as well for a really kind of a who's who in El Paso. You go from the mayor to the president here at UTEP, Dr. Heather Wilson, the athletic director, Jim Center. Had a really nice ceremony leading up to tonight's game. Really officially unveiling the completion of the Sun Bowl renovation here, where we're standing atop the press tower. Here is the Paul and Alejandra Foster Tower, part of the Hunt Family Sky Lounge that was just renamed to Paul and Alejandra Foster Tower. Of course, Paul Foster, very well known here in the area, had the lead gift of $5.1 million to the university to ensure completion of the Sun Bowl renovation project, which includes, I'll give you kind of a list of some of the things that entails: 502 outdoor club seats, 104 indoor club seats, 26 loge boxes, 40-foot bar at the club level outdoor pavilion, which is where they held the ceremony, which just gives a stunning view of downtown El Paso into Mexico and of the Franklin Mountains as well here in El Paso, plus new premium seating, renovated restrooms and concessions at club level. We heard from Paul Foster of Franklin Mountain Investments, Woody Hunt, Crystal Long, the president and CEO of GECU here locally, and it was an opportunity to really, they did the official ribbon cutting. That was something that they weren't able to do prior to the start of last year. The project was complete. They were, some fans in those first 2 games were able to see it, but on the whole, most people weren't because of what we were going through with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it kind of felt like a return to some normalcy as well, Trevor.
Well, it definitely did, and I think to be able to unveil this great scenery and the great setting that they've done and the updates and the upgrades that they've done to the stadium, it just gives it such a great feel on the home side of the stadium. And it's something that they did. Very thankful for the Hunts and GECU and Paul Foster and these people that donated all this money to the program to help the facility build itself. It's something that they want for many years of El Paso fans to be able to come and celebrate and have a great experience at the Sun Bowl. This is a great setting for any football game right in the middle of the Franklin Mountains. It's one of the most beautiful stadiums I've ever seen or been a part of, and the renovation is just incredible, and I think that everyone here that was here for the ribbon cutting really enjoyed it, got to see some of the people that invested to help ensure that this was going to be a great upgrade, and people are going to be able to experience it very well for many years to come.
I know you've played in a lot of stadiums across the country. I've covered a lot of games across the country. Started my career in Eugene, Oregon, covering the Oregon Ducks at Autzen Stadium and Oregon State in Corvallis there at Reser Stadium. Traveled through much of the Pac-12, covered Ohio State, games at the Horseshoe and at the Big House against Michigan. Big-time college football games, college football settings. But I'm with you, Trevor. From simply an optic standpoint and just pure beauty standpoint, you'd be hard-pressed to find a much nicer stadium in college football in terms of just the uniqueness of it. It's literally carved into a mountainside. It gives stunning views from just about any seat you are in the house. You'll be looking at an incredible view one way or another. And that really has to be a draw and a lure for fans. And, of course, it's on the national stage once a year. Not this year for the first time. It was one of the longest-running bowl games next to the Rose Bowl. But, of course, COVID-19 also caused the Sun Bowl to not happen this past year. So the El Pasoans are really craving for the return of football, not just on the UTEP standpoint, but also from the bowl game standpoint, having the Sun Bowl here. But it gets its spotlight once a year, New Year's Eve, every single year, year in, year out.
Every year, and the stadium is packed every year for the bowl game when it's here. And it's a great experience, and people from other places, when their team is playing here for the Sun Bowl, get to come and experience El Paso. And I think a lot of people are actually surprised when they show up at the beauty of the Sun Bowl. Not only does it have plenty of seats, but just the view that you have of the mountains and being able to see all the way into Mexico really makes a difference. There's not many schools that have that visual when you're looking outside of the stadium from inside. So it's really cool. It's a great experience, but the update and upgrades for the stadium of what they've done is absolutely incredible.
So what you've been seeing on your screen, in addition to some wonderful fans in the stands and even four-legged friends making their way into the stands, having a wonderful evening out tonight, is the UTEP spring game. You saw the special teams being worked on a little bit there during halftime, but this is the UTEP spring game on CUSA TV and sponsored by the Oscar Arrieta All-State Agency here in El Paso. We are at halftime. They're about to start the second half now, put 12 minutes on the clock. They had 12 minutes on the first quarter, 15 in the second quarter, a little bit of running clock, a little bit of actual game clockage going on. here in the third quarter? We'll see. Your guess is as good as ours. In terms of what they ultimately decide to do, it is a very ad-lib game situation going on right now. But I know, number one, Dana Dimmel also happy to see that everyone is seemingly to be playing cleanly and having a good time in that first half. And, of course, these guys are excited to hit each other, but they don't want to hurt each other.
Well, I'm excited to see that we haven't had any injuries up to this point, and hopefully the second half is going to be the same. I know that was one of the biggest concerns coming into the game, and going full tackle against your own team is being able to make it into the offseason without any major injuries. So hopefully getting in through the second half, we're going to be able to finish it out that way.
And they do the kickoff again, of course, not live, but they do the kickoff again, and it'll be this time the first team offense to get the start with the possession here to start the second half. The second team offense got the ball to start the game, so it'll be back to the starters. And you wonder, especially once you get in the second half, how much are you going to see of certain guys? Well, good news for UTEP fans, they do get to see a little bit more, at least one more series of Gavin Hardison and this first unit offensively.
I'd like to see them be able to work their way back down the field again and be 4 for 4 and actually working their way down the field against the second team defense to prove themselves that offensively they understand what they're doing. The guys are lining up in the right places. Oh, and a dropped pass. It was going to be a big one, but
he was looking for Trent Thompson. Keep an eye on Trent Thompson. He had 2 catches for 56 yards in 8 games last year. Started 2 games in 2019. But if tonight isn't any indication of who Hardison wants to go to, Trent Thompson might be a name that we say a lot more next season, because he's been a target early and often in this spring game.
Well, he was a target, and it looks like they threw a flag on the play.
Throw a flag.
I wasn't sure that I saw it. Maybe they were just giving him one to move the down marker on this drive for these guys.
The ones get the edge.
Yep. Got to make sure that they're leading the pack.
So now 1st and 10 for Hardison again, taking another deep shot, but overthrows Smith, and it's dropped. Should have been intercepted, but it is dropped on the play. Tyson Wilson, the safety, coming over top, and should have had that one.
Well, that's one that the coach tells you. That's why you're playing DB instead of wide receiver, because when it hits you in the hand, you're supposed to catch it. That one was easy for him to grab. Threw it right to him, and unfortunately unable to come up with the play. He's going to be kicking himself after that play.
Well, and Hardison did have Tyron Smith there, had a step, but I don't know if he saw the safety coming over the top for the help there, because otherwise, if it was Smith one-on-one, he had the step, and if he was able to catch that and go off and running. So you wonder, looking back on the game film, if that was a safety that Hardison missed. Taking another deep shot again, and this one is complete. Inside the 20-yard line, the catch made by Dennis Barnes. And so there you see the potential for the guy who played mostly cornerback a year ago and will once again be in the mix at quarterback this year, but really looking to make his presence felt offensively at the wide receiver position. And Dana Dimmel said to me, 4-3 guy, you just have to have him on offense when he's that fast. And you saw the speed kill there.
Well, speed is one thing that you can't coach, and it's definitely an advantage for guys that have it. And if you have a guy in a position that you can take advantage of like that, put him in a slot receiver, let him run deep and take advantage of a safety. Most of the times, corners are faster than safeties defensively. So if you can get them manned up in a situation with one of your fast receivers on the inside, it gives you a chance to take a deep shot from an inside receiver, fade him out towards the sideline. That was a great throw by Hardison on the play, but a big play made.
That was the first real big play of the night here in the spring game. Get the fans excited. So the deep shot from Gavin Hardison to Dennis Barnes. And in the last play, you saw a rare carry for James Tupou, one of the fullbacks in this offense. Forrest McKee, the starter, senior from Las Cruces, from Oñate High School, is out. Of course, he suffered that torn ACL, really devastating injury last year, as another pass goes to the outside to Barnes. That one was a minimal gain. And actually, that was Trent Thompson, excuse me. So another target for Trent Thompson. But Forrest McKee was one of those guys. I mean, he's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but he was a guy that this offense rallies around, is a real leader in this locker room, given that he's a senior, all the experience he has. Tore the ACL at the Texas game, week 2. So still not ready to go for spring, and no reason to rush it for a guy like that. So he's out this spring, but James Tupou is certainly not a guy who misses a beat spelling Forrest McKee, and he's always very recognizable with the long hair coming out of the back of the helmet. They'll take a deep shot into the end zone. This one incomplete. This time, Hardison was looking for Justin Garrett, but a little too strong on the throw.
Well, I'm not sure if the quarterbacks are still calling the plays here in the game or what's going on, but they're stretching it down the field a little bit, right? They're getting some guys getting up and down the field, trying to get it vertical and test these DBs, see if they can cover some guys, and been able to have some success. Had a couple overthrown passes here, but I think for the most part, I really like what I'm seeing out of Hardison. Very confident, can make all the throws like I was saying, and the offensive line is looking very good. Giving him plenty enough time that he's not having any pressure is a good sign.
This is a 4th and 9, so instead of going for the field goal, they're going to go for it, and that's going to go down as a sack. Hardison will still throw it anyway, but it won't count. So turnover on downs for the offense on the first drive here of this second half, and the clock stops at 7:59. So as it stands right now, we're not seeing a running clock here in the third quarter. That's the first probably major blemish for the offensive unit, who has moved the ball pretty effectively down the field. This time getting it deep down the field and into the red zone, but having it fail to convert there. And in a normal game situation there, you're probably kicking a field goal, especially on 4th and 9, but why not?
I was just thinking the exact same thing. I would really think they would kick a field goal, but maybe they're trying to work on other things right now during the spring game than putting them back out there to kick field goals. We kicked plenty of field goals in the first half already.
I was going to say, Gavin Beckley got a 41-yarder into this direction back in that first half, and it was a successful attempt. He did have a PAT block, but between the other extra point and a 41-yard field goal, I think they saw what they wanted to see there and wanted to take their stab at a 4th down play. This one is deflected, incomplete. Dennis Barnes, by the way, back out there on the defensive side and in the mix, number 12. They're going to have to figure something out with his number, though, if he's going to play both ways, because he's not going to be able to play wearing number 12 offensively, because, of course, that's Gavin Hardison's number.
That's true. I did not think of that. So when they do get into the season, that'll be something that they have to make an adjustment.
Well, that's the interesting thing. They're going to have to find a number that isn't duplicated, because that's the rule in college football. You see a lot of duplicate numbers on the roster, but that's usually one is offense, one is defense, and they will never be on the field at the same time. So
sometimes you can have a third, an offense, defense, and a special teams guy.
A long snapper or someone like that, yeah.
I know that we had that whenever I was here. I was number 10 at quarterback. We had Drew Thomas, number 10 at cornerback, and then our kicker, Jose Martinez,
pretty rare, though.
Was number 10. Yep.
I don't think I've seen many instances with 3 of the same number. I guess that's just people just really like that number. Because there are plenty others to choose from.
That's very true.
You got all the way up to 99. This is Isaiah Bravo at quarterback, getting another series, rolling out, throwing against his body, and the pass is picked off. An ill-advised throw from Bravo, just trying to catch lightning in a bottle there. But that pass is picked off by the defense. It's Mikel Broussard. And that'll turn it back over to the first-team offense, although it looks like we're going to see Calvin Brownholtz run with the ones now.
Well, that's not what you want to see if I'm the offensive coordinator watching my quarterback scramble out of the pocket and just heave a ball up down the field in hopes that you're going to have some guy catch it. One thing that you never want to do is throw it late over the middle of the field as a quarterback and just toss it up for a jump ball. And good thing defensively for UTEP there to be able to come up with the interception, as we saw an interception dropped on the last drive by the ones on offense.
So with 6:30 left here in the third quarter, and the Orange team up 16-6. Get the ball back and the offense back out on the field. So we'll still see a mix of mostly ones, but it looks like now as they're breaking the huddle, this group of Orange players has a lot of twos mixed into it as well. I don't know if we'll see Quadras Wadley anymore. He had a touchdown and a near second touchdown in that first half at running back. He's on the sideline with his helmet on his side, not wearing it, so I don't know that we'll see any more Wadley tonight, and that's one of those positions at the running back spot. You're obviously going to take the licks in a spring game format, then you don't want to have anything happen. So it's Ronaldo Flores and James Tupou back there with Calvin Brownholtz, who hands it off to Tupou. And that's a nice carry for Tupou, about 4 or 5 yards on first down to bring up second and short or medium.
Well, it's nice to be able to see these guys mixing up, having some of the ones go with some of the twos. It just really gives you a little bit more experience working together. Quarterbacks have a different way that they say the cadence, and offensive line have different ways that they have communicating with each other of what they're doing on different blocking schemes, you know, in each and every play. So for these guys to be able to get experience together is better than having them split the entire time and only working with the ones, only working with the twos, I believe.
Timeout called here. They still have the clock running at 5. Oh, no, excuse me. That was just the next play. Thought I heard the whistle for a timeout, but instead they'll keep the clock rolling there at 5:33 and counting. Ronaldo Flores will check out. But Brownhold's getting a chance to run with some of the ones now. Still have Tyron Smith there at the bottom of your screen at wide receiver. Seeing him make a couple catches. Josh Farr at the top of the screen. But it's back to Tupou, and Tupou lowers the shoulder and bowls his way over midfield around the 47, 48-yard line. So this has got to be fun for James Tupou, a fullback, getting some real carries here.
Well, that was a good run right there to pick up the first down, because I think he made contact with the defender about 2 yards short of the first down and was able to fight his way to get the first down. Nice, tough run right through the middle. Good finish.
So that brings the first team offense back into their opponent's territory. Used to saying that opponent, but of course the opponent tonight is UTEP. Brownholtz completes the pass, and pushed out of bounds is Josh Farr, coming across the middle of the field. Not enough speed to get a few extra yards there, and that is enough for another first down for UTEP.
Good long run, nice drag pattern from one side of the field all the way across to the other to pick up about 15 yards on the play. That's huge. Drop it down right at the line of scrimmage, let a guy pick up some extra yards for the offense.
So you have to take a shot here. First down. Not quite a shot, but they're staying to the air, and that pass incomplete. Brownholtz that time was looking for Dennis Barnes again.
I'd be calling a lot of shots if I was calling my own plays.
Of course.
I'd be lighting it up.
Go routes.
Go route, post, everything deep. Let's go. Max pass protection.
I was going to say, you made the joke earlier about that's why you're a DB when you drop the ball that you should have caught.
Yep.
Remember Dennis Barnes, cornerback? Not saying he can't catch. I'm just, he's going to have to shake that stigma for cornerbacks.
Yep, definitely. That's always a knock on defensive backs, not having as good a hands as what wide receivers do.
And that's why you're not a wide receiver yet.
But they always argue the fact that they could play wide receiver.
Yeah. Well, Dennis Barnes is going to get a chance to prove it this year.
I think just because you
he has so far.
Just because you can run around and you're fast doesn't mean you could be a receiver.
That's right. That's right.
You can be slow. You just got to catch it. Be in the right spot and catch the ball.
Yeah, you run good routes. Make a world of difference.
Yeah, you're not doing me any good if you can't catch it.
No. I think as the quarterback, you're probably not throwing it to him, Trevor, are you?
Definitely not, no.
At least he's not your first read.
He's my decoy route.
Yeah. Here's a shot. They're going for Smith, and Smith can't corral it. Looked like he got a little caught up in his route, speaking of, just at the last minute there. Got twisted and turned around a little bit.
Good effort trying to catch it, but the ball was left a little inside. It looked like he was pretty well wide open. Force that thing a little deeper and more towards the sideline, gives him an opportunity to catch it versus having to turn back inside with the extra defender there.
He did have a step, though. That's the one thing that I've noticed here so far is Tyron Smith seems to have a step on most of his routes.
Well, he's been getting loose from these DBs and finding a little bit of separation, and that's one thing as a receiver. If you can get some separation, give your quarterback a little bit more space to fit that ball in whenever you're running a route, it definitely helps out.
Brownholtz on the run, and it's incomplete, dropped. Zach Fryer maybe started to think about planting that foot upfield before he had possession.
Well, you got to catch it before you run with it. That was an easy one. A lot of times as a receiver, when you're so wide open, those are the hard ones to catch. And I think he just lost a little concentration, like you said. He's trying to get up the field before he makes the catch. But unfortunately, offensively, that definitely hurts you, especially when that was a 4th down.
That was 4th and 4. So in a real game scenario, that is a crusher.
Gotta have that.
So after the turnover via interception, Orange gives it back to White on the turnover on downs. And there's a 1:42 left in this 3rd quarter.
You got a new quarterback coming in.
Yeah, so here's the problem, Trevor. There is no 16 on the rosters we have at quarterback.
Okay.
So we're going to go with it. But I was told all quarterbacks were going to play, which would include Zach Rodriguez, an El Paso High School grad, first-team All-District, who is a freshman. But, well, good thing there's a whistle there because that was an interception.
Offsides on the defense, a good hard count to start. Your drive offensively is pretty good. Give yourself a free 5 yards, 1st and 5. Opens up the playbook a little bit.
The only quarterback on the roster that we haven't seen so far are Jacoby Langino, as well as Zach Rodriguez. Because, of course, I mentioned earlier, Kevin Hurley unable to play in this spring game, a guy that they're excited about through the recruiting process, signed him, and could be in that battle for the backup spot, so we'll have to see. But
come camp, it's open for everybody.
Things heat back up.
Yep. Get out there and prove yourself.
What did you like most about camp?
Honestly, being able to connect with all my teammates. You know, it's time that you're away from your comfort zone. You're not at your apartment. You're not at your dorm. Everyone is together. So
were they doing the Rio Doso trips back then?
We were.
Yeah.
No. We did Socorro.
Okay.
Socorro, New Mexico is where we used to go. But it was a nice getaway. It was time that we could spend with each other, really learn about each other, and really create. I feel like that's where we created so many relationships, being able to spend 2 weeks away from all other distractions.
Right.
And just focus on who we're there with, our teammates, our brothers, guys that we were going to be going to battle with. And so I really think that was a big part of it. We had, something exciting to do each and every night of camp. The coaches had different things that we could do, and, different sections of the team has to do something or do some type of performance. So it was made fun. I think that's what camps do. Every team has camps and has fun like that. But I think overall just the relationships you're able to build during that time was the most substantial, because once you get back on campus, there's so many other things that are happening. You're having to worry about your class schedule. You're having to worry about, training, eating, pay your bills at home, all the things that you're not having to worry about when you're at camp because everything is right there for you. Take advantage of that time.
More recently, UTEP has made some trips to Rio Doso for camp. They didn't do it last year because of COVID, so it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that any final decisions have been made at this point. There's still so much time between now and then, and with the pandemic still going on, and things certainly appearing to be much better, especially here in El Paso. You've heard nationally about some other waves that are happening. That's the end of the 3rd quarter, by the way. But hearing about some other waves that are happening in other parts. But El Paso's really avoided most of that, and this football program has done largely a really good job. Even during last season, they had the one issue where they went out to Rice and they had a positive pop when they got there, but those were those rapid tests, and they ended up, when they retested, came back, they ended up being false positives. So they lost a football game, and I mean lost in terms of the opportunity to play. They didn't actually play the game, so they didn't lose the game, but lost an opportunity to play a football game, all because of false positive tests. I mean, that was part of the season that was for UTEP. They ended up playing 8 games, 3-5 on the year, 0-4 in the conference. But it started out, as we mentioned earlier, 3-1. But ultimately, they just couldn't get back on the field, couldn't play a game here in El Paso. And it was just frustrating as all get out for UTEP.
Well, it's totally unfortunate when you look at how they started the season and being 3-1 and everything changing. It wasn't just UTEP. It's absolutely every team in college sports that had to deal with the same circumstances and everything. But UTEP at the time had gotten to be, or El Paso had gotten to be such a hot spot for coronavirus that everything got shut down. Teams weren't wanting to come out here to play. And when you're taken away from having your home opportunities at playing games, you kind of lose your mojo, right? Being in your home stadium, you're comfortable here. You know what to expect. You know where the locker room is at. You know where the training room is at. You know what to expect in your own home. And when that's taken away from you, it makes it a little bit more difficult to have continued success. And so it's nice that a lot of the guys that were on the team all the guys that were on the team last year were able to come back and not lose time due to the pandemic and able to build off of that moving into this offseason.
Brownholtz was taking a deep shot to Dennis Barnes, so now we're seeing Dennis Barnes quite a bit here in the mix. Couldn't quite corral that one. But we do have a running clock now in the fourth quarter, approaching 11 minutes to go. Brownholtz able to get flushed out there and keep the play alive. That one is probably one that Barnes would say he should have come down with. I don't know if he would have gotten his foot in. He was forced out, so that would have been close if he did catch it. Would have been an
acrobatic catch, nonetheless.
Yeah, of course. That was the game, though, that Rice game, as here's a handoff to the outside to Joseph, and Joseph finds some running room. Big run all the way up near midfield. Pickup of about 15 on the play from Jalen Joseph, the redshirt freshman out of Andrus High School here in El Paso. It was that Rice trip that Dana said was really the final gut punch to the confidence, the morale of this team, because they fought hard so much. The 3-1 start, then had a couple hiccups on the road, then just kept having games that were postponed and or canceled, that teams just wouldn't come here, ultimately having to play that North Texas game, as we mentioned earlier, as a home game, but on the road in Denton. But it was really that Rice game that took the wind out of the sails for this program, because they'd been itching to finally get back. They were doing everything right. Dana had even said, because of all the issues and the delays and everything, they had 10 practices in specifically for Rice. So they were game planned and ready to go for that game. They got on the charter plane. They flew there. They landed there. They were ready to play the game. Then the testing happens, and it's
bam,
rushing around, doing rapid testing, and all of a sudden you're boarding a flight and coming back to El Paso, not getting to play a game.
Yeah,
and it was the day of. It was a matter of hours before the game.
It's totally unfortunate when you look at the team overall, right? You can do everything possible that you can to try and be safe and have everything in order to be able to have your opportunity of playing, and in the last second have a positive test. When these guys are having a test 3 times a week, every week, to be able to even make it to the game. So that's unfortunate. But a lot of success comes on guys and teams being in a routine, right? So when I think of routine, I think about each week that I'm preparing for a game, I've got so many days that I have to watch film. I've got a couple days that I've got to work out and hit the weights, and then I've got preparation for the game. I've got practices, I've got walkthrough, and a lot of mental things leading up to games. So when your preparation is thrown off as far as your routine and what days you're doing things and how many days I have an opportunity to prepare, and it's elongated, you can somewhat lose focus, right, in the midst of everything, because you're thrown off of your routine.
Right.
So that could definitely be one of the factors that hopefully this season, when it comes around, everything can stay on track and games aren't postponed, and hopefully for the most part the pandemic can be under control.
Yeah, that is. I mean, we're at April 9th, and the hope is, you put another 4 or 5 months from now, the vaccinations are out there. El Paso's done a really good job as a city and a county vaccinating the people here in this community. UTEP, I know, has done a good job with vaccinations at the school level as well. As another deep shot is taken to Tyron Smith. They're just trying to get one to him, and every one of them is just a little bit off. But Smith showing that potential here tonight so far for UTEP as well. But yeah, the vaccinations are, coming fast and furious, and more people are getting vaccinated. So by the time we get to the late summer into the early fall, certainly the hope is that you can start to fill these stands a little bit more. Maybe you're still wearing masks, but at the very least, if they can get fans in the stands, a product on the field where you're not worried about testing issues leading up to a game, pushing it a game back by a day, having it postponed, making it, going so far as to make a trip and then not get to play the game. All those variables, at the very least, even if you don't have 100% capacity or you're still wearing masks in the stands, if at the very least you can get into a season where you know what your schedule is, which at this point UTEP does, but you know that you're going to play those games on the schedule on the dates and times that they're there for, that could make a world of difference.
Definitely. The routine, I think about it, when the season comes out at the beginning of the year, each week who I'm going to prepare for and what we're going to do, what's going to be our game plan for this week versus next week versus the next week. And as you build throughout the season, right, you really are determining who you are as a team. Each team you face is going to, give you a different obstacle that you have to overcome during the game, right? So am I going to have to be better offensively, better defensively this game? Where is going to be our strength? Where is going to be our weakness each and every week? So I think coming around to this season, if everything can play its part, these guys can really get on a schedule of when I'm doing my workout, when I'm doing my practice, when I'm in my meetings, and then get ready to play a game on Saturday. I think it'll be a great feeling for this team, especially seeing that they had success when they were on a roll, and then everything really got thrown off, and then they really fell off the ship also. So I think they'll get back to shape.
Well, and you talk about the schedule. I mean, that really became a part of the schedule for everyone last year. They were tested as part of the Conference USA rules. They were tested 3 times a week. Doing the basketball games for the UTEP basketball games just earlier, a couple months ago, I became part of the testing program, had to get tested before, not 3 times a week, but before we would do the games because we were on the floor. So in order to be on the floor, we had to be tested as well to make sure that we weren't positive. And so, you think for these players, they're doing it 3 times a week. Well, that now becomes an extra thing that when you were a college football player, that was something you never had to worry about. That wasn't a part of your schedule. There's the lift, there's the study sessions, there's practice, of course, all that stuff, but you didn't have to worry about a testing component to it.
And a lot of it, too, there's so many ways that you're able to get exposed as a student athlete, not only having, on campus or with all the people that you're working with, especially on a football team, there's so many guys that have to be focused on avoiding being exposed to someone. And so a lot of times you can be doing all the right things and one person does the wrong thing and it exposes so many people. It's an unfortunate outbreak for a lot of people. But I think for the most part, if you believe that you can be safe and you want everyone else around you to not be affected, do it for everyone around you, not do it for yourself.
And the reality with this virus is, even with the tracing, even when a positive pops, you don't necessarily know where it came from, where it originated, if someone did the wrong thing or not. I mean, that's the extra challenge of this whole thing, is it can spread so quickly in a locker room, but you don't even necessarily know where it started or how it got going or anything like that. Or it could just be one isolated case, and that's that. So it's just been a really challenging year for everyone involved. And obviously, when you're talking about it at the sports level, you have to keep in mind, obviously, the bigger picture of what it's done to this world and what it's done to this country. But specifically talking from a team standpoint, a football standpoint, it was just a year unlike any other. And we talked about the coaching staff here this year for UTEP, with Dana Dimmel at the helm and his 3 decades plus of experience, and now hiring 2 coordinators who have 30 plus years each experience. I can tell you that there's never been a year like this for this coaching staff, even with all that experience.
With all that experience, I don't think anyone – I know that no one has ever experienced something like this during our lifetime, where it really shut down the entire country.
Yeah.
It's something that didn't only affect a couple people. It affected absolutely everybody. And so you had to learn how to cope, how to adjust, and how to live my life on a daily basis just to be healthy, not to, if you look at the general people in society, that's to be healthy and to continue living my life. These guys are still trying to be healthy, trying to train and prepare for games and having to go against other people. So there's so many variables on the table that come into being able to have success and focus on football in general in today's society, when there's such a deadly virus that anyone could catch at any moment. And an interception thrown on
Davion Inyang gets the pick.
Interception late, a little celebration by the defense.
Well, that's 6. Beg your pardon, Gary Third.
Pass intercepted by the Orange team, number 6, Gary Third.
Said, give me credit for that interception.
Definitely.
Gary Theard is a guy who is going to see a lot of playing time this year, by the way. We talked about with Stephen Forrester was one of the starters who will not be returning at linebacker, and Jason Van Hook is not returning at linebacker either. So Theard is that guy now, along with Breon Hayward and Tyrese Knight, who will likely see a lot of time, as well as Cal Wallerstedt, who is a coach's son, defensive line coach here of Matt Wallerstedt, son of Matt's. So that's a name that, even though we're in the final minutes here of this spring game, Gary Theard is a name that they expect to be playing, and he's a JUCO transfer out of Chaffey College. He had 12 tackles there. A junior with still a couple of years of eligibility, got in the mix last year a little bit, but Dana Dimmel saying he's got a chance to be really, really good.
Well, anyone that we can bring on our team that's going to be really, really good, that has some experience, and that can bring something to the table that's really going to make an impact, I'm all for it. And it looks like we're going deep here again.
To Smith. Oh, it's through the hands of Tyron Smith.
That
he
was
finally had it.
The big play of the day we would have been talking about. And dropped. Unfortunate.
Oh, and he just ran about 95 yards.
There
it is. He pats himself on the chest.
Every
he knew
other
that one.
deep pass today thrown to him has been just out of his reach, and the one that sits right in his hands perfect. Can't come up with it.
Oh, that's crushing.
That's tough.
He's put in so much work tonight. He's ran so many routes. He's had so many deep shots. Brownholtz put it on him.
That was a great throw.
That was in stride.
That was as perfect as it could be.
Looks like they want to take another deep shot, set up for one underneath. It's bobbled and falls incomplete. Luke Soto was the intended receiver on that one. Glad we see Luke Soto, by the way, because here's a fun fact about him. Redshirt freshman. He's probably third on the depth chart right now at the tight end position. But here's a fun fact about him. He lettered in high school, not just in football, but guess the other sport, Trevor.
Swimming.
Rodeo.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. I wouldn't have guessed that one.
Me neither.
That's awesome.
I saw that and I thought, that's.
Do you know what events he did in rodeo?
I don't.
No?
I don't. I couldn't even explain all the events in rodeo.
I know the event that I did in rodeo, and that's when
Did you do rodeo?
I didn't do rodeo. When I went to the rodeo.
When you went to the rodeo.
They'd have the part where they'd tie a ribbon on a calf's tail or something and have all the kids come down, try and catch the ribbon off the tail. That was my part of rodeo that I enjoyed.
See, we learned something about you, too. Another guy, by the way, we haven't really seen much of him tonight, but Nick Ost is another name to look out for, number 17, because we're talking about tight ends. He's kind of at a flex tight end spot that we'll see him. He's another transfer from Kansas State. We talked a little bit earlier about Walter Neal Jr. at cornerback, likely factor in the starting role at cornerback. But Nick Ost is another guy who's trying to find his way into that receiving core. And the reason why he's really interesting, not just the transfer from Kansas State, Trevor, you'll appreciate this, as they're taking another shot for Smith, and he makes the catch this time. There was a safety over the top to take him down at the 45-yard line, though. But a little bit of a consolation prize there for Smith, although with 1 minute and 3 seconds left to go in this one, we may see at least one more deep shot to Tyron Smith because he wants to find the end zone.
Well, it seems like he's got all the energy. He doesn't slow down. He keeps speeding off the ball. The defenders can't quite keep up with him. It seems like he's getting on top of them every time he's running deep. And
yeah. Well, he's one-on-one at the bottom of the screen now, and the safety is all the way at the hash. They go with a running play here back to Jalen Joseph, who's popped a couple of nice runs in this one.
Let's see if they can get another snap off. It's a running clock.
Yeah, 31 seconds and counting. I did want to get the 1 point in on Nick Ost. He was a backup quarterback at Kansas State, and just as recently, a couple of years ago, he was in a quarterback competition for the starting spot. So he's a backup quarterback for a Power 5 school who's now trying to play wide receiver here and could also help out in the quarterback room as well.
Well, he's definitely got the frame for it. If you're looking at a 6'5" frame at quarterback, that's great. But then you put him out at receiver, a flex tight end guy, that's huge. The size and ability to move gives you an advantage instead of having a guy that's more of a blocking type tight end that can't necessarily flex out as a receiver. It gives you a huge advantage if you have a guy that gives you that ability.
What a catch, by the way, by Josh Farr. He's had a couple of targets as well and made a heck of a catch there. And the quarterback on that play, by the way, number 16, we got this figured out. He's listed as wide receiver on the roster, but playing quarterback Devin Dage. So we got to give Devin Dage credit. because that was a really nice throw and a very nice catch from Josh Farr. It did happen, though, as the final seconds ticked off the clock, and as you can see, the team is making its way out to midfield. So that will be the final play of the game, and even though they couldn't finish the drive, I think that's a good one to end on if you're UTEP. A nice throw and catch between Daitch and Josh Farr, and at the end of the day, at least from our eye, what we could tell, UTEP made it through without any significant injuries, any issues there, and that is the biggest thing that Dana Dimel wanted to achieve out of tonight. Get the guys out there, put the pads on, let them play, but stay healthy.
Well, it's a positive feeling watching these guys get out here, be able to compete against one another, get a good feeling for live action football, because throughout all of spring they do not go live with any full tackling drills or anything. So just like you said, Coach Dimmel's main focus was to be able to make it out of tonight with gaining the experience of playing against each other, and also be able to make it out without any major injuries or anything going into the offseason. So I think it was a very successful spring game. These guys got a lot of experience out of it and got to have a little bit of fun as well, having the fans in the stands, playing in the Sun Bowl, and actually feeling like things are kind of getting back to a little bit being normal.
So that'll do it for UTEP before at least for the spring, and then they'll come back, of course, start the preseason. And then we hope there will be a full schedule for the Miners this upcoming season, and it'll start with a rivalry game. They'll travel on the road up I-10 for the Battle of I-10 against New Mexico State. And we'll see if they can get that game played and play this season in full. And with that, UTEP hoping to make a bowl game this year. What do you say, Trevor?
We're going to make a bowl game this year. It's happening. As long as the pandemic doesn't shut us down, it's happening.
All right. There's the bold prediction on April 9th from Trevor Vitito that UTEP will make a bowl game this year. Thanks so much, by the way, for watching here on CUSA TV. This spring game here from UTEP. Officially, as it stands, I believe it was Orange that won 16-6, but the scoreboard already reads a 0-0 in this one. But UTEP is the winner, most importantly, from this spring game. This has been the UTEP Spring Game presented by Oscar Arrieta, All-State Agency. On behalf of the entire production crew here with Miner Vision and Trevor Vitito, I'm Eric Elkins saying so long from the Sun Bowl. We'll see you in the fall for football season.